When he was at table with them, he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. The Emmaus story has been used to show how Christ is revealed and known, experienced in the sharing of Holy Communion. When we break bread at this ritual table, we share the bread and the wine, and our eyes are opened, like those of the disciples, and we recognize Christ right here with us. This is certainly a hopeful and encouraging story most of the time, but now, in the midst of a pandemic, when we have not shared communion in over 6 weeks, what are we to do with this reading? Under normal circumstances, the beautiful climax of the story comes when Jesus takes bread, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to the disciples. In that moment, their eyes are opened and they recognize Christ. That action, that formula is at the heart of our worship and our faith. We take, bless, break, and give bread to one another, and in doing so, Jesus is present. We recognize Christ in one another and in those whom we feed. Right now, we can't do this. We can't break bread together and give it to one another. But here's the thing. Breaking bread was just one of the important things that Jesus did on that road to Emmaus with those disciples. If we pull back from that climactic moment at the table, there is much more going on in this beautiful story. If we look at the rest of the story, what we find is a Christian path, a life path to abundant life right now. And as we right now, even as we experience fear and anxiety, even as we're shut down by this pandemic, as we watch jobs and whole companies go away, as we watch our government struggle to deal with the situation, as we experience these struggles and deprivations personally in our own lives, we need abundant life now more than ever. Abundant life. How abundant is your life right now? When was the last time you hugged a friend or a grandchild? When was the last time you enjoyed a meal out or a crowded party with friends, bumping into each other, laughing, sharing stories and jokes around a meal at a dinner table? We need abundance right about now. The road to Emmaus is one of Luke's brilliant stories that show us how to follow Christ and experience abundant life ourselves. Right now, in this pandemic shutdown, we need all the help we can get. So let's look at what the Emmaus Road story can teach us about abundant life and the Christian life path that leads to rich, full living. The Emmaus story, of course, starts on the road. The disciples literally walk with Jesus, and that's a great metaphor for following and learning from Christ. But in this case, there's a particular detail that we need to pay attention to as we read the story. While they were walking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. How often have we failed to recognize Christ in someone else? How often have we failed to see the sacred in a given moment or situation? This opening to the story encourages us to learn to see Christ in each moment and in each person. Like those disciples, we must develop our capacity to know and trust that God is present and active in and for and through us, here and now. So they walked with Jesus, told him why they were upset. And then he interpreted all the things about himself in all the scriptures. He showed them how to read the Bible and how to find Christ in the Word. Finally, they broke bread together. They invited the stranger whom they met on the road to eat with them. They honored a stranger by asking him to bless and break the bread for the meal, essentially to say grace. This story reveals 3 important steps of a Christian life path to truly living, to abundant life. First, learn to see Christ in others and recognize the presence of God on our road together. Then, read the Bible, learning to live from a Christian worldview through the stories of the Old Testament and the New. And finally, break bread together. Share your life and your bread with others. The sacred relationship of life is known and realized in the simple act of sharing a meal. There's a lot that we can't do right now. The pandemic and the shutdown limit and isolate us, but we can find Christ. We can see and know the sacred in each moment, here and now. We can have abundant life. We can walk the Emmaus Road. The first step is learning to recognize the presence of Christ. In my own life, I have been blessed with the gift of knowing the presence and action of God within through centering prayer. This simple Christian contemplative prayer practice gives peace, relief from anxiety, and a deepening awareness of Christ, both within my own self and in others. Contemplative practices aren't for everyone, I know, but there are many ways to develop our awareness of the presence and action of God. It can be as simple as going for a walk, expecting to see Christ in the others whom you meet, expecting to see the sacred in the world around you. The second part of this Emmaus road to Christ and abundant life is the reading of the Bible. Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us? The pandemic and stay-at-home orders create a perfect opportunity to read the Bible. In fact, in this Easter season, between now and Pentecost on May 3rd, I suggest that you read the book of Acts. See how the first disciples learned to walk with Christ, with the risen Christ, to see the divine in the world, and to live abundantly. The third part of this Emmaus road to abundant life is a little harder to do during the pandemic shutdown. We can't break bread together. Those of us who live alone can't take, bless, break, and give bread. Normally, we have the ritual meal, the Eucharist, at least weekly, but not now. And really, probably not for some time, even after the stay-at-home orders, restrictions begin to lift. What we do have is the Word. It was the Word of Christ that warmed the disciples' hearts on the Emmaus Road. For now, we will break bread apart in our homes, knowing that each of us is doing so. Even if separately, we will do so knowing in our hearts that we are together on the Emmaus Road, seeking Christ in others, reading the Bible and having our hearts warmed by the Word of God, sharing in a spiritual communion until we can be together again to take, bless, break, and give bread to one another.